My name is Tia Diaz-Balart, and I'm the Executive Director for Miami and Fort Lauderdale Youth for Christ. And I come on the shoulders of greats like Ted Place and Bonnie Rodriguez, and it's amazing to see how God is working through our communities in our ministries. So looking back over these 75 years, it's been really interesting and kind of seeing what the kids were facing over the past number of decades. And there were a lot of the same issues: drugs, political unrest, broken families, so many of the same things.
Miami is a unique place. Drugs, crime, murder, party city. And then you got kids entrenched in the midst of all of that. Kids having challenges, kids living in poverty. I think that's one of the most striking things. And the kids just trying to navigate life. And what do they do as the city struggles to help them?
In 1963, the Bible was taken out of public schools. And so it is no coincidence that campus life began in Miami in 1964 in response to that.
Yeah, in 1983, we saw what was happening in the streets, and it was going with gangs and the criminal activity, and we were really, really concerned. So we went to the administration there, the detention center, and said, can we do something? Can we help these youth? Can we come in and do services?
My name is Stacy Morales, and I have been with Youth for Christ since 1996, 27 years. So as a teacher at West Homestead Elementary School, I realized that our kids had a need for not just physical things and educational things, but they had a need for Jesus. They had a need to know who Jesus was and that he loved them.
The tragedy of the Parkland shooting was a catalyst for us to expand into the Broward County school system. Even as the schools were locking their doors and putting up cameras, their arms were opening to the faith-based community.
So Catalyst Hip Hop started with a man named Joe Stegale. It was a vision that God gave Joe Stegale, passion. He had two convictions. He loved hip hop and he loved God even more. And he wanted to see them both come together.
Cloud Life began back in 2020, right after COVID hit, and the need was very clear. We once had in-person, face-to-face ministry, and in the blink of an eye, it was stripped away from us, and we had to figure out how we're gonna connect with these students and maintain our relationships so that they could see Jesus.
Oftentimes when people hear the name Youth for Christ, people assume that we're a youth group for Christian kids. But in reality, that's the opposite of who we are. We reach kids everywhere, no matter what their background is, but we specifically have a heart and reach out to our community's most at-risk children. So kids who are in jail, kids who are in inner cities and facing poverty and difficulties and tragedy and trauma.
When I first got involved in this ministry, there was a super need inside the jails. There was a need for kids who were living in the inner city ghettos, who had their identity placed in the streets, who were fatherless, who were in between, in and out of jail. And one of the things that we knew is that if we don't make a difference with these kids that are in jail and help them when they get out of jail, there's not really a lot of hope for them. They're gonna be incarcerated as an adult.
I would say the biggest challenge that we've faced have been really the need for space and where we're gonna be and where we're gonna have our programs because we need it multiple times a week, and then funding. We always need funding. It takes a lot to run a program that's 3 and 4 days a week.
One of our biggest challenges that we've tackled in the last decade and a half is the shifting in culture. I would say even needing to be on campus and meeting students where they are.
And one of the greatest challenges I've seen is students withdrawing, the isolation. They're withdrawing even from their friends.
I often think about these kids, and I love them, but they're in a pit. But over the last few years, we've just seen the social media, which has really caused a lot of problems. We've seen the music that they're listening to and the depth of depravity. I mean, I don't know what else to say. It's just where their minds are. We've seen more drugs. There's still gang activities, so it's rough, and we want to share something that can change their life.
When I think back on the impact that Youth for Christ has on the city, I think about the kids that get involved in our program in any capacity, accept Christ in their heart, change their families' lives, and become somebody that can contribute to Miami in a positive way, be a change maker. That's what excites me. That's I feel like is our biggest thing that we give back to this community, is that we help kids change their life, because the kids are the ones that change the community.
The biggest impact has been raising up Indigenous leaders. We want our young people to become lifelong followers of Christ, and we want them to serve and give back in their own communities. And so since 2004, with our first Indigenous leader who we brought on staff with us, Delna, we have hired over 50 Indigenous leaders that were high school students and young adults that stay in their communities, give back, and make a difference in their own communities.
Youth for Christ, what our missionaries do every single day is they pour their heart and soul into these amazing youth, and the results are nothing short of miraculous.
Carrying that same vision and being good stewards of it.
To encourage them, love on them, lift them up in the places where they feel like they have no one else.
You know, I've seen a lot of kids, and so 40 years, yeah, and I rejoice. And they have heard a message that can transform their lives.
If it wasn't for organizations like Youth for Christ, where would these kids go? Who would be the one to walk into their cell? Who would be the one waiting for them when they get out of jail? Youth for Christ makes all the difference.
Youth for Christ Miami has been serving our youth for 75 amazing, wonderful years, blessing hundreds of thousands of youth. I hope you will support us as we launch into our next 75 great and glorious years.